Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Cracking the Coding Interview. In this series, we are going through the interview prep book called Cracking the Coding Interview. It has 189 programming questions and solutions. Very helpful if you are getting ready for that next interview, trying to land that next job at Amazon or Facebook or any of the other top tech companies. So today we're going to be hitting question 1.3, URLify. All right, so let's dive right in. The question is, and what I want you guys to do is, when you're given a question during an interview, take a lot of time reading it. Notice how the question is worded, because a lot of times that will give you hints on how they want you to solve it, or it will give you hints on an optimal solution. So the question says here, write a method to replace all spaces in a string with %20. You may assume that the string has sufficient space at the end to hold the additional characters. So that is a sentence that should give you an aha moment, right? And that you're given the true length of the string. Note, if implementing in Java, please use a character array so that you can perform this operation in place. So we are going to be using Java today, so we know a couple things from this question. One, the string has sufficient space at the end to hold the additional characters. This means we can have a character array that's passed in, and it's going to be big enough so that every space that's in there can be converted into %20. So every space, which will be one item in the array, will need to be converted to 3 items in the array. So that's an extra two characters per space. So we can assume that the array that's passed in will already have that space at the end. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started with this approach. It is also important in Java that we're going to be using a character array to perform the operation in place, because Java string operations are typically pretty expensive, because the entire string is copied each time you do an assignment operation on a string. That's why the string buffer object is very helpful. For instance, if I were to create a string builder, I could do string builder dot append a string builder dot append b, and then s out string builder dot toString. So the beautiful thing about string builder is each time you do an append, it's not trying to copy the entire string each time. It'll only do that when you call the toString method. So it's much more efficient than just doing string test equal test plus a, for instance. So both of these will give you the same thing, but one is just more expensive than the other. Let me just show you here. We'll output string builder.toString and test. And this is just a tangent, just so that you know. It's just very important to know the difference between string builder and string manipulation in Java, especially. And we can do more videos on that in the future about how strings are allocated. But strings are basically created as global objects in a string pool. So when one is created, it gets stored in memory, and then that one is referenced each time. So, but anyway, you can see from the output we have AB and AB both times, but this implementation was definitely a lot quicker, because this each time had to copy every single letter over to the new variable test. So keep that in mind. Not incredibly relevant for this, since we're going to be dealing with a character array, but I just want you guys to be aware of it. Alright, so the first thing we want to do for this solution is, the book says we will use this approach. So the approach we're going to use is to edit the string starting from the end and working backwards. So this is a very important piece to this solution. You want to start at the end and go backwards. That way you have enough space and you don't have to recopy everything each time. So when I first read this problem, I naively thought, okay, I'll start iterating through the array, starting from the beginning and copying each letter each time. And then when I run into a space, I'll copy over the %20 and then keep moving. But that gets very complicated because you don't know if you're going to have enough space. And the way that you actually index the array gets a little confusing there. So it's much easier to start at the end and move everything starting at the back of the array instead of the front. So that's what we're going to do here. It says this is useful because we have an extra buffer at the end which allows us to change characters without worrying about what we're overriding. It's because we're doing this in place, right? Remember, that's the trick. We're using a single array to do this. So because of that, it's important to not overwrite the existing characters in the array. We'll use this approach in this problem. The algorithm employs a two-scan approach. In the first scan, we count the number of spaces. By tripling this number, we can compute how many extra characters we will have in the final string. In the second pass, which is done in reverse order, we actually edit the string. When we see a space, we replace it with %20. If there's no space, then we copy the original character. And so that's pretty much the solution. So the very first thing we'll do is we'll write a method called replace spaces. And it's going to take in a character array and a length. Okay? So first we're going to count the number of spaces. And set up some variables here. For I equals 0, I less than length, I plus plus. So we're expecting, right, the length to be passed in to the method. If str at I equals space, then we're going to increment our space count. So after this pass, which will go for length, so big O of length or big O of n, constant time, we'll have the number of spaces in the array. So now we're going to say that our new length is equal to our length plus our space count times 2. Because remember, the space count used to take up 1, and we're going to replace that with %20, which is 3. So we need to, for every 1, we need to have 2 more. Right? So that's where this new length comes from. And we're going to go ahead and put the end character here at the end of our array so that we know when it's finished. And now we're going to iterate. Pay attention to this for loop here. For I equal length minus 1, I greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus. So this is the length of the string that's passed in, right? So the character array is going to be bigger than this. This is the length of the actual string that's passed in. And remember, it tells us this right here. And that you're giving the true length of the string. So what we're doing here is we're going to go to the end of that character array, but to the end of the actual string that's passed in, not the very end, because remember, it's bigger than the word that it's contained because it has space for the new lines. So if str at I equals space, so we're at the end of the character array, and when I say end, once again, I mean the end of the string that's passed in that is contained in that character array. If that is a space, we're going to go to the very end of the array and set new length minus 1 equal to 0. We're going to set new length minus 2 equal to 2. And we're going to set new length minus 3. It's array index here. equals to percent. So percent 20. And that's all that we need to do there. Else we're just going to copy it straight over. Minus 1 equals str at I. New length equals new length minus 1. Okay. Alrighty. So this is pretty much the method. So like I said, we're going to be iterating to the end of the string. For example, let's say that dog gets passed in, or let's say I am dog. Okay, that's the string that gets passed in. The character array that gets passed in is going to look like this. I space A M space D O G. Okay, but remember, for each space we're going to be adding 2 more for the percent 20. So that's 4 extra spaces here. 4. So that's what the array will look like, but the length will be passed in as 8. So that's just an example. So when we start this for loop here, we've got length, which will put us right here. Okay? And for each iteration, we're going to start at G. We'll say, okay, G is not a space. So let me just put these in. 1, 2. So the actual length is going to be I am dog 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we'll have an array that's actually size 12. Okay, so this is what the array will look like. On the first pass, we'll be here. We'll say G. Okay, this is if str at I equals space, then we do this. Well, G is not equal to space, so G gets copied over to here. And then we subtract new length minus 1. So now new length is equal to this, and our for loop is counting down from length. So now we go to O. O is not equal to a space, so new length is subtracted. We go here, and our for loop decrements the length variable, so we go here. D is not equal to a space, so we just copy it over, and new length gets decremented, and we move to here. Okay, this is the interesting part, because str at I is equal to a space. So string at new length minus 1 equals 0. New length minus 2 equals 2. New length minus 3 equals percent. Okay? And there we have it. So at this point, new length has been updated, and we're going to decrement the length. So we get M. That gets copied over. A gets copied over just the same as we've seen. This will be the percent 20 again. And we get I. So that was me just sort of stepping through the algorithm. I hope you guys understood that. Just feel free to code this up and walk through it yourselves and see what you end up getting. Let me go ahead and we'll just run this. We'll say string test equals I am dog char array equals test dot to char array, and we're going to be passing this in. Let's make it static. static void, making it static so I can access it from the main method without creating an instance of the main class. We're going to say replace spaces, array, and 8. Okay. So the interesting thing about this is that we didn't actually instantiate array to contain enough space at the end to handle moving and adding the %20. So this approach will not actually work. What we want to do is new 12. Okay. And we can even do something like, I think we can just instantiate it like this. Let's just see what that looks like. That's a string. Let's hard code it. I am space D O G. I am dog. Okay, so this should have 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, so now for char I in array, let's just print it. All right, let's run this and see what we get. We don't need this test string anymore. All right, we got an index out of bounds exception. Interesting. Let's remove this line here. Run it again. All right. So the output that we got here doesn't seem, so to me this doesn't look correct, obviously. So there's still a space inside of the array, and it basically just printed I am dog twice. So that's interesting to me. I think maybe if we just leave these as empty, let's see if we can do that. Can I pass null in? Let's see if this makes a difference. Oh, I can't pass in null. Let's pass in this null character here. Let's run it again. I think maybe our length might be off. This length here, we'll check it. I think that's right. I am dog. Okay, so I took this, basically I took this straight from the book. You get the idea, you know, maybe code it up, debug it on your own, find out why we're not really getting the output that we expect. It might have something to do with how I'm initializing the array and the size that I'm passing in. You know, I would debug it right here, but the debug window won't be captured in the video, so it won't be that helpful to you guys. But yeah, go ahead, code it up, take this same code and you know, test it out, find out what's going on, and see if you can figure out why we're not getting the output that we expect. Once again, that's the idea. There's some important pieces. The main thing is you're going to be doing it in place, so that means you can't initialize any other array or strings. And in order to do it in place, you want to start from the back and move towards the front. So that's the interesting parts about this question. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope you learned something and it was helpful. I do want to say, if you're interested in all of my blog posts, please do visit mindfulbit.com. If it's on YouTube that you're watching this, hit that subscribe button. I post a lot of videos from coding interview prep to let's chat about soft skills. I have a less code section that focuses more on algorithms and data structures. And I also do book reviews, so self-help books, any kind of professional development books, I'll cover that as well. So thanks again, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.